So the presentation will follow this outline. I think it will come. Can you help me there? Yes. So there are two major points that I will cover in this presentation. The first one, I will talk about, I will give some background on what is agrobiodiversity and what is the connection with global food and nutrition security. And then I will talk later about the genetic resources policies that are in place and their relationship with the conservation and utilization of African traditional vegetables. So yes, the first part, what is agrobiodiversity? We mean by this terminology the variety and variability of animals, plant species, and microorganisms at a different level, either genetic species or ecosystem levels, and which are relevant for food and agriculture. And they form the ecosystem that we utilize. Is it the battery? Yes. Why is agrobiodiversity important? I think there are evidences that when you have less diversity, it will mean, especially in the smallholder farming system, it means less food and also much poverty. And that connects directly with the SDG number 1, which aim to end poverty in all its forms and everywhere by 2030. And vegetables can play a very big role here. More diversity also translates into more food. And I think all you will agree with me that will also translate in better nutrition. And we are in 2021, which is the International Year of Fruits and Vegetables. And the main objective here is to improve nutrition. I think the different speakers from the morning till now, they have emphasized the challenges that the humanity is facing in terms of malnutrition. So vegetables here, they can play a very big role. But when we look at the trends at a global level, I think when I was young, well, I'm not old yet. When I was at university, we were taught in our plant genetic resources courses that we have about 7,000 plant species which have been used by humans for food. But recent statistics indicate that this number of species is declining. That means that there is a genetic erosion. At the same time, our knowledge about the diversity of plants on Earth is increasing, and the nearly 400,000 species have been characterized, or not characterized, but identified on Earth. And the causes, there are different causes for this situation, and one is about the agricultural policies around the world. It is like they are more promoting homogenization of agricultural food supplies. Yeah, in the next slide, yeah, it is about the second part on policies. Which are these policies under which we are operating when we talk about plant genetic resources and the utilization? Since the groundbreaking works by Vavilov since the 1920s, where he identified the origins of plant diversity that we use through to the strategic plan for biodiversity conservation. There have been a lot of policies and international agreements under which we operate. I will not be going to read all of them, but let me emphasize 3 of them. One is the CBD, the Convention on the Biological Diversity, which came into force in the 1993, and followed by the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture of the FAO, which came into force in June 2004. And one of the most critical is the Nagoya Protocol, which is in force since 2014. Why am I emphasizing these three? Because they are guiding all what we do. Either we are gene bank managers, or we are plant breeders, or we are seed companies. We are all bound with the different clauses and articles in these agreements. There is also this SDG Target 2.5. I put it here to remind us what we had to do, but that we have not done yet. It was indicated that by 2020, that was last year, that we should have been maintaining the genetic diversity of seed, cultivated plants, and animal breeds, and their wild relatives in seed and plant banks at national, regional, and international levels, and promote access and fair sharing of the benefits that arise from their utilization. Are we already at this level? No. The answer is no. And why are we lagging behind? I put this here to remind the different articles in the ITPGRFA. Article 5 is on conservation, exploration, collecting, characterization, evaluation, etc., and documentation to support gene bank activities so that they can support in return the activities of the plant breeders and then the farmers. And it also has the article number 10, which is on the multilateral system, which defined the different crops that can be, can be those whose access should be facilitated. But then there is the Nagoya Protocol, which deals specifically on access and benefit sharing. Yeah, before that, there is, I need to mention that there are 49 contracting parties in Africa to the ITPGRFA. And then the Nagoya Protocol deals specifically about access and benefit sharing. What does it mean? When I collect seeds from indigenous seeds or landraces from farmers, I need to ensure that benefits, any benefits arising are shared back to the communities in simple terms. But benefits can take different forms. It may be monetary and non-monetary. Non-monetary forms means you give training to people, you return improved seed so that they can use and improve production and income. Yes. So far, there are 45 contracting parties to the Nagoya Protocol in Africa. Few countries in Africa have not joined the Nagoya Protocol yet. And among these 45, only about 42% of them, that means 19 countries, have regulations, either in forms of drafts or advanced laws that have been in place and can be enforced to legislate the access and benefit sharing. So these are the list of those countries. But among them, let me highlight that just very few, about 8 to 7, have access and benefit sharing procedure very clearly and available and published in the clearing, in the ABS clearing house. So while there are all of these agreements that are in place, there are still several questions and gray areas. This is the graphical, this graphic shows in terms of divide, how things looks like. This gold color is the international treaty. These are the diversity that are in the international treaty. But within the treaty, there is what is called the Annex 1, in which parties have decided to include 64 different species. And the multilateral system is there to facilitate access and distribution. But anything falling outside the international treaty is dealt with in the Nagoya Protocol. So like the wild relatives, I mean, when crops, for instance, are not in Annex 1 and not in Annex 1, but they are PGRFA, they are used for food and agriculture. How do we access to them? Do we use the Nagoya Protocol or do we use the international treaty? Also, the wild relatives of crops, how do we access to them? Because sometimes they are not conserved in gene banks. And what about the non-Annex 1, in case countries have not established clear procedures? So these are a few questions which also have some impediments on how we operate and how we do things. Some of the consequences are this, I already mentioned, this study which shows that there are still very huge gaps in Africa in terms of collecting and conservation. And the Director General mentioned this morning that 1/3 of our genetic diversity of African vegetables have less than 10 accessions in gene banks all over the world. And also there is this challenge. In Africa, only, let's say the opposite, 70% of African countries don't have gene banks, proper gene banks to conserve genetic resources. So probably maybe an idea could be to put efforts together and then have the support of the African Union to have regional gene banks and well-equipped and functional. Is it coming? Yeah, this is just an experience I would like to share. That was based on a work before I joined the World Vegetable Center, founded by the Darwin Initiative in Benin and Madagascar, coincidentally, to support the mutually supportive implementation of the Nagoya Protocol and the international treaty. So basically, the two countries were facilitated to put in place a legal framework that they called the one window system. And in the one window system, both the stakeholders of the Nagoya Protocol and the international treaty, they work together to give access to genetic diversity. So this is the one window. Users put their requests, they submit their request. When it deals with plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, that will be analyzed and studied by the, the National Competent Authority dealing with the international treaty. And then they forward it to the gene bank or the GenPlus provider, and then they will sign an SMTA, and the user can get the GenPlus. But when it falls outside the PGRFA, then it goes to the the subcommittee of the national, dealing with the Nagoya Protocol, sorry. And then the user will negotiate the PIC and MAT. PIC and MAT, PIC is a pre-informed consent, and MAT is the mutually agreed terms. And then when they agree, the national competent authority can sign the collecting permit and the user can get access to the GenPlus. This is still being under experimentation in these two countries. And the World Vegetable Center, I'm still lucky to continue working with these partners in order to test how they work. So in order to wrap up, I will say that in the international treaties Annex 1, only 35 crop food plants are included, plus 29 fodder species. And this list was established based on, well, food security, but also our interdependence on rice, wheat, maize, maybe potatoes, etc. But what about the non-Annex 1 crops? What we are, the one we are talking about today, the traditional African vegetables, they are still food. They are used for food. And 2021 is in the International Year of Fruit and Vegetables. So should we start thinking about opening the window and then include more species into that Annex 1 so that we can facilitate access and utilization? As concluding remarks, international agreements on PGRFA have been signed by most African countries, but still the progress is very low on the adoption and enforcement in order to ensure access and benefit sharing. So this is a call for intra-Africa cooperation, institutional and policy support, and continental level commitment, especially from African governments, so that they invest into the conservation and sustainability of African vegetable genetic resources. So I would like to thank the World Vegetable Centers those continuously supporting our activities, especially the Taiwan government, the UK aid, USAID, the GIZ, and other stakeholders. Thank you.